Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, December 2nd edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Merton, and I'll be taking you guys through the latest in the world of mixed martial arts. We're here in December already. Crazy. This year has gone by really fast. I started doing this podcast in May, so it's been 6 months now, and Christmas is coming up, so the year's gone by really fast. Really enjoyed doing the podcast. Just wanted to say thanks to everyone who watched the video I did with Nick last week, who shared it. We got some really good views, some good numbers on that. Probably the best numbers he's had in the podcast so far. So just wanted to say thanks to everyone for the support there. And I plan to have Nick on in the future when there's a big fight. I'll get him to come on and break down fights, or even in if there's not some big fights, just get Nick on to give some insight because Nick is one of the sharpest minds out there when it comes to mixed martial art betting, but just breaking down fights in general. So I'll definitely get Nick back on. But just wanted to say thanks to everyone for tuning into that particular podcast and to the show in general. All right, so I got a couple of things to talk about today. Obviously, nothing crazy because, once again, there was no UFC event this weekend, so no recap. Tomorrow, I should mention, Cole Shelton will be joining me at 11 a.m. Eastern to break down UFC Washington, D.C., so I'm looking forward to doing that. But today, I'll be just doing some news and some notes and stuff like that. So let's just start with Conor McGregor. Once again, obviously, he's back in the news. He'll be fighting Donald Cerrone at UFC 246 in January. Can't wait for that fight. You guys are all excited about that fight. So, according to Ariel Helwani, Conor McGregor has a plan for 2020. Ariel says Conor's plans to fight 3 times. The first fight, of course, is to fight Donald Cerrone, January 18th, UFC 246, Las Vegas. If he succeeds in winning that fight, he plans to fight either Nate Diaz or Jorge Masvidal in the spring or summer. And if he wins that fight, he wants a rematch with Khabib. So this actually does make a lot of sense, in my opinion. Obviously, he's going to be fighting Cerrone, so that fight's already taken care of. Part A of the 3-part plan. Part B, those fights make sense too. Like the Nate Diaz trilogy fight's a fight that I absolutely think that the UFC needs to do at some point. It's just there's a lot of easy money sitting out there. They're 1-1. They're 2 big names. It's just a fight that makes a lot of sense. It'd be a fun fight with the fans. If Conor loses to Cerrone, that fight makes all the sense of the world. So I think there's a good chance if he loses this fight to Cerrone, they'll do that fight. If he wins this fight, it's possible Jorge Masvidal might just wait and not take a title shot and actually fight Conor instead because of the payday. There's no doubt in my mind that Jorge Masvidal should be fighting next for the title against the winner of Usman and Covington. I think we all agree with that. He is the number 1 contender. He beat Darren Till. He beat Ben Askren. He beat Nate Diaz by TKO and obviously that doctor stoppage in the last fight. But he's looked amazing. If he doesn't want that title shot, though, he could be wanting that fight with Conor McGregor or Nick Diaz. It looks like Masvidal wants that money fight. So if Conor does beat Cerrone, there's a chance he could fight Masvidal next. And then, of course, if he beats Masvidal or Diaz or whoever, and Khabib's still the champ. He wants to apparently fight Khabib in Moscow. That's interesting. Listen, if Conor wins 2 more fights, I think we could give him another title shot. There's no way he deserves one now. I think people were just upset that he, in many ways, wanted a title shot coming off that loss. No, he didn't deserve it. But if he wins against Cerrone and then beats Diaz or Masvidal, I think that a fight with Khabib makes sense. Having said that, does Khabib want that fight? We know Khabib said in the past that Conor doesn't deserve a fight. He says he wants to fight Ferguson, and then he wants to fight GSP. So if Khabib beats Tony Ferguson in April, he'll probably be chasing that GSP fight. I do think the McGregor fight would be a big fight for him, but it's possible the GSP fight might be even bigger. I think at that point, if he beats Tony Ferguson, people are really going to want to see him challenge another wrestler, a high-level wrestler like GSP. So there's a lot of moving parts here, obviously, but McGregor's plan, again, fight 3 times in 2020. Donald Cerrone, Part A, that's already done with. Part B, Nate Diaz or Masvidal. We'll see what happens there in Part C, Khabib in Moscow. So it's a good plan. We'll see if it comes to fruition because obviously he hasn't fought often the last couple of years. Last time he fought 3 times, I think it was 2016, so it's been a while. But if he stays active and healthy and motivated, there's no reason he can't do this. All right, a couple other things here. Francis Ngannou and Alexander Volkov, they've been going back and forth on social media. It really seems like this fight's destined to happen. Possibly at UFC 246, that fight, that card does need a co-main event. I think Ngannou Volkov is a very good co-main event. The only problem is it puts Ngannou at risk of not fighting in, I believe it's March, where they are planning to go to France. And we'll see what happens there because obviously Francis Ngannou has been being saved, I think, in many ways for that card in France. But at the same time, they do need a big co-main event for this card at UFC 246. The Anthony Pettis-Diego Ferreira fight, that's a great fight. I love that matchup. Great fight. Love that matchup. But is it a co-main event? I don't know. I don't know if you can sell Diego Ferreira as a co-main eventer. Pettis, obviously you can. But Diego, I don't know if you can. So I think Ngannou Volkov is a very good main event for that card if it happens. But yes, it looks like they really want each other. They want to beat up each other. Nganou's accusing Volkov of ducking him. Volkov says that he wants to fight him as soon as possible. So we'll see what happens. I think this fight's going to be made. There's no one really else for either guy to fight at the moment, so fight makes a lot of sense. Got a comment here. Michael Herrera, appreciate your updates. Oh, man, no problem, dude. I love doing this podcast. All right, a couple other things here. Luke Rockhold, he lost his grappling match on the weekend at Polaris 12. I saw the highlights of it. It is what it is. I mean, he's fighting a really good prospect. I think his name's Nick Rodriguez, a really good jiu-jitsu prospect. So there's no shame in that. And I've seen a lot of people kind of giving, just kind of harping on Luke Rockhold here. It's not an MMA fight, guys. You got to remember that. It's a grappling match. So he lost this match, but he could fight again or grapple again today and then win that fight. It is what it is, right? Like, obviously, I'm sure he wanted to win, but it is what it is. So I don't think this makes it seem like Luke's any more done than what you would have thought after the Blachowicz fight. I don't personally want to see Luke Rockhold fight again. I think he's got severe chin issues at this point, and he risks being severely damaged if he fights again, especially against a hard hitter. But I don't think losing this grappling match says anything more about that than the fights with Blachowicz and a couple of those other guys like Romero and Bisping did. So I think Rockhold is happy in his life. He's happy doing the modeling. He's happy doing the other things in life that he doesn't have to fight anymore. So if he wants to fight, he has that drive, and I think he does have that drive. I really do believe Rockhold's a competitor at heart, and that's why he would even consider coming back. But to me, it just doesn't make sense at the moment. I'll never say never with MMA. Guys very rarely hold on to their retirement. So even if he says he's done, he might come back in a few years. But right now, I'd like to see Rockhold take at least a year off, think about his future. If he wants to come back in a year, fine. But right now, do not fight, Luke. You don't need to. Just do your other thing. Speaking of a former opponent for Luke Rockhold, Ronaldo Jacare Souza, he apparently is considering moving back down to 185. The fight with Blachowicz did not go as planned, obviously. The biggest problem with that fight was I think I did score for Jacare. I think I gave him the first 3 rounds. It was a close fight. No doubt about it. Close fight, could have went either way. But I think with that fight, the problem was he was just not strong enough to take down Blachowicz. And obviously, if you can't take down Jan, and Jan has good takedown defense, so we got to give Jan credit for that. But if you can't take down Jan, then is he really going to take down the other bigger guys at 205 like Jones and guys like that, like the huge guys at the top of the division? I doubt it. So to me, it does actually make sense he go back down, even though he obviously was struggling there a little bit at the end of his run at 185. He's 39, so he's obviously getting up there in age. But to me, it's like he's losing a really top guys. Losing a split decision like Blachowicz, who's a top 5 light heavyweight, is not that end of the world. Losing the decision to Hermanson wasn't a great loss, but again, that's a top 10 guy, top 5 guy, arguably. So to me, he's losing the top guys. I still think there's something left in the tank with Jacare, but he's at the end of the day, he's a competitor as well, and he says he wants to fight again. So unlike Luke, Jacare is not getting brutally knocked out, and that's why I do think he should continue to fight. But again, that's going to be his call if it's at 205 or 185. But I do think 185 probably makes more sense based on how that fight went with Jan, where he just couldn't get the takedown. Leon Edwards, he's been calling out Tyron Woodley. Obviously, his prediction now for 2020 is that he's going to be a world champion by the end of the year. I don't think it's that crazy, personally. I think a lot of people were like, oh, this guy's joking. But to me, he's extremely talented. Like, I think Leon Edwards is an amazing fighter. He's so well-rounded, and he's got a great record in the UFC, 10-2, 8-fight win streak. How can you argue with that? So, obviously, matching up against a guy like Usman, he's fought him before. It didn't go too well, but that was like 4 or 5 years ago. I think it was 2014 or 2015 they fought. So it's been a while. He's improved since then. Striking-wise, he probably is better than Usman. Striking-wise, he might be better than Covington, too. I mean, Covington obviously has that extremely good gas tank, and he has the pressure that we saw against Robbie Lawler. But technically, I think Leon Edwards has a better striking regimen than those guys. His wrestling's really good, too. He's got really good underrated wrestling, great gas tank, good chin. I think Edwards is extremely dangerous. He's the dark horse of the division. If you're sleeping on Leon Edwards, you're wrong. This guy's great. So, yes, it's a little, out there maybe saying he's going to hold gold in 2020, considering some of the guys at the top of the division right now. But to me, it's not that crazy because I think this guy's super underrated. I'm really curious to see this Woodley fight. I think it makes a lot of sense. Again, either UFC 246, you do that as a co-main event there, or you put this fight in London in March as the main event. Leon Edwards, Tyron Woodley, 5 rounds. And if Leon Edwards wins that fight, I think you'd be talking about a serious title contender at that point. A couple fight announcements here. UFC 246 gets another fight here. Pretty interesting little matchup here. I think it's a flyweight fight. Yes, it is. Tim Elliott will be taking on Askarov. So good little fight here. Tim Elliott, 15-9-1. He is coming off a loss to Davison Figueiredo by guillotine choke, so not a great loss there, but we know him from the past. He's fought in the UFC for many years. A very well-rounded guy, good wrestling, really good chin, good gas tank too. So dangerous guy. Makes a lot of mistakes though. Obviously, his submission defense isn't that good. He's been submitted 3 times now in the UFC, so that's not good. But He is pretty good with his wrestling. So if he gets on top, you could be in for a rough night. Takes on Askarov here, 10-0-1. Askarov coming off a draw with Brandon Moreno. Great fight, one of the better fights, I think, of the last quarter of the year in Mexico. It probably should have been a win, but it is what it is. It was a draw. I wanted to see a rematch between those two guys personally, but the UFC chose to book them against different opponents. So Moreno's going to be fighting Jacare, France, and Askarov against Elliott. My lean would be towards Askarov, though, just undefeated still, even with the draw. The guy's very dangerous, well-rounded, good submissions, and I think that's the biggest problem here for Tim Elliott. This guy is just really good at submissions, and he probably does get choked out. And one other fight here, UFC Brasilia, that's in March. Pedro Van Zandt will be fighting Amanda Rivas on that card. And now we have another fight, Brad Tavares against Antonio Carlos Jr. I don't think this is the main event. It possibly could end up being a 5-round fight, but I think for right now it's 3 rounds. I do expect Jacare Souza to fight in that card. I should mention that. I'm not sure against who, but I expect Jacare to fight in that card. But Brad Tavares, been around for a long time, 17-6 record. He's been in the UFC for almost 10 years now. He is coming off 2 straight losses, though, to Israel Adesanya and Edmund Shabazian. So this guy's losing to, like, literally the best guys in the world right now. It's one of those things where he's not an elite guy, and I think we've seen that throughout his career, but he's still a really good gatekeeper. So this is an interesting fight here with Antonio Carlos Jr., who's had some ups and downs in his career as well. Antonio Carlos Jr. is a dangerous guy as well, no doubt about it. His record is 10-4 and 1 no contest, so a good record. But coming off back-to-back losses to Uriah Hall and Ian Heinisch, biggest problem with him is his gas tank, and that could be an issue with Brad Tavares, who has a great gas tank and a really good chin. Tough fight to call. I mean, it's in Brazil, so I got to think about this one a little bit more. But I do think Brad Tavares actually has a chance to snap the losing skid with this one, just because of his toughness and durability. And I think that could be a problem here with Carlos Jr., who kind of tends to fade and gas as the fight gets late. So good fight, like the matchup, but yeah, we'll see what happens there. Going to see if I missed anything else that I want to talk about. I don't think so, though. I should mention this. I'll probably write an article about this later, but Campbell McLaren, who's the president of Combachi, one of the founders of the UFC, he posted his top 10 pound-for-pound list of guys over the age of 40. He literally had Tito Ortiz at number 1, number 2, Daniel Cormier, and number 3, Alberto Del Rio. And then I think he had 4, I think it was Damian Maia or something. Like, he's getting shit on by fans, no doubt about it. Listen, the guy is the promoter, I get it, but the list is pretty funny. That's all I'm going to say about that. So you guys can go check the list out yourself. There was a good laugh this morning when I saw it on my phone, but listen, the guy's a promoter. Dana White used to do this all the time. I can't blame Campbell. The fight with Tito Ortiz and Alberto Del Rio, that's this weekend. That's a big fight for them, so they obviously want to promote the guys. But at the same time, you can't treat your fans like dummies. So it was kind of funny, but yeah. All right, guys, that's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow for the double podcast, 10 a.m., break down the news, 11 a.m., break down UFC, Washington, D.C. Check me on Twitter at MMAOB, podcast, MMAOddsbreaker.com, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Anchor, bunch of other places. It's everywhere now. So you guys can definitely check that out. Also check me out at bjpenn.com and MMARings.net. It's December, guys. We're covered in snow here in Toronto. So if you guys got bad snow, please drive safe today and all week. No accidents. Cross my fingers for you guys. Get to work on time. Guys, have a great day. I'll be back tomorrow for the double podcast. Have a great day. I'll see you later. Bye.